What's up, everyone? If you're seeing this, that means I've probably been banned. That's right. Cancel culture has finally come for me. Oh my God, it's over. It's over. The free speech warriors. Where are you now? They've taken me out, ladies and gentlemen. It's over. I'm done. A couple days ago, I had a conversation where I was responding to the Republican House of Representatives Speaker, and I said some things. Let's take a look at what I said. Libs of TikTok, of course, posted about it. Here is what Libs of TikTok claimed I was saying. Hassan Parker just called for violence against a sitting U.S. senator. If you cared about Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott at FBI. This got 17,000 likes. It was on February 28th. Let's take a look at this clip really quickly.
There's about $50 billion estimated that are lost every year in Medicaid, just in fraud alone.
If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott, okay? You wouldn't make Rick Scott, former governor of Florida, Rick Scott, you wouldn't make him a prominent part of the Republican Party. Now, that seems like a wild thing to say. Oh my God. Is this person calling for the death of a U.S. senator? Of course not. I was not calling for the assassination of a U.S. senator. So I went back to figure out the context. Here it is. Let's take a look.
Are people who are covered by Medicaid now going to potentially lose Medicaid coverage as a result of this?
No, look, the White House has made a commitment. The president said over and over and over, we're not going to touch Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. We've made the same commitment. Now, that said, what we are going to do is go into those programs and carve out the fraud, waste, and abuse and find efficiencies. Couple of examples. You know, there's about $50 billion estimated that are lost every year in Medicaid, just in fraud alone.
That fraud is not coming from individuals. It's coming from providers. They're not tackling providers. They're not actually going after like false billing. They are trying to cut recipients. If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott. The reason why I'm saying if you cared about Medicare or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott is because, and not make him a prominent part of the Republican Party, is because he to this day is still known as committing the largest Medicare fraud in U.S. history. They want to cut SNAP. They want to cut Medicaid. They want to cut the funding of Medicaid. They want to make it harder for people to receive Medicaid. They don't want to actually go after medical providers or the insurance companies or the nursing homes that are lining their pockets with major donations. Those are the people who actually engage in the fraud. It's not your uncle that's like lying about their condition and stealing money from the government by, going to the doctor or whatever. Okay, so obviously I shouldn't have used hyperbolic language, and there's definitely some ownership that I must take. Some apologies there. I should not have said Mike Johnson should kill Rick Scott. I should have simply said Mike Johnson should punish Rick Scott, perhaps with the, maximum punishment, whatever that would be, for defrauding Medicare and Medicaid for over $1.7 billion. Now, let's talk about the things that he did in this process, because Rick Scott co-founded the Columbia Hospital Corporation, which later merged to a corporation known as Columbia/HCA, which eventually became the nation's largest for-profit healthcare company. Rick Scott, who of course also looks like Voldemort, did a lot of things. The company defrauded Medicare, Medicaid, and other federal programs. The U.S. Department of Justice won 14 felony convictions against the company, which was fined $1.7 billion in what was at the time the largest healthcare fraud settlement in United States history.
HCA was defrauding the government.
HCA admitted to things like submitting inflated bills and exaggerating diagnoses to increase Medicare reimbursements.
According to federal investigators, the hospital company systematically defrauded Medicare, Medicaid, and other federal healthcare programs while paying kickbacks to its physicians. Scott, of course, denied any wrongdoing.
Scott pled the fifth 75 times to avoid jail for Medicare fraud.
He didn't go to jail over this. He didn't even get any punishments over this. And Scott's resignation certainly was fantastic. For his pockets, he walked away with $10 million in severance pay, a 5-year consulting contract, and $300 million in stock and options. He is now the wealthiest member of the United States Senate. Rick Scott also in the past apologized, took ownership seemingly over his actions, but since then, in his endless interest in gutting all of the social safety nets so the American poor suffer more, Rick Scott has actually seemingly turned around and thinks that this was political prosecution, pure political prosecution against them.
No, I'm fed up. I watched what happened to me and my company. I've watched what's happened. I've talked to business people over the years, what's happened to them when you have political persecution.
What I was simply trying to say is Republicans don't care about the actual fraud that takes place in terms of government entitlements programs, in terms of government expenditure, because if they did, they obviously would punish Rick Scott. Rick Scott would not be a prominent fixture of the Republican Party. Rick Scott, who was elected as the governor of Florida after he committed the largest Medicare fraud in U.S. history at the time.
$73 million. That's the amount that we know about so far that Scott and the Republican Party spent on TV advertising.
Rick Scott, who then went on to become the Florida senator.
On Sunday, a manual recount confirmed Republican Governor Rick Scott's victory over the incumbent Democrat Bill Nelson.
Once again, after doing insane amounts of Medicare fraud.
Elon Musk posted on X his support for Florida Senator Rick Scott for Senate Majority Leader.
This was simply the point. But of course, Republicans want to avoid this point. Asmongold, for those of you who don't know, is a right-wing political commentator. He does have some centrist opinions every now and then. I believe he himself actually is a big advocate for healthcare, likes Bernie Sanders, but spends most of his time simply sitting around and reacting to Donald Trump. He is now officially, by my estimations, a larger right-wing political commentator than even the likes of Ben Shapiro. Very successful in this field. His videos reacting to Donald Trump get millions of views, more so than the Daily Wire could ever dream of. Asmongold also is the largest political content creator on Twitch in general. He's the largest political streamer now. He's double my size. He's always been double my size, but he's now double my size when it comes to political commentary as well. So let's see what the largest free speech defender had to say. He actually voluntarily brings this up in a YouTube video called "What the Fuck is Twitch Doing?" The YouTube video is from 2 days ago with 1 million views. The first 13 minutes of it is just reacting to the latest Ethan Klein video, who is falsely smearing me as someone who doesn't care about Israeli civilians or whatever, which is obviously incorrect, but we'll get to that perhaps down the line. He packaged that up with the Libs of TikTok video to call for my banning.
Let me see if I can find, like I do, as I said, I do try to maintain a degree of neutrality with a lot of this stuff. And I try. Hi again, everyone. Like super hard on it. I'll link you guys the video real quick before I get into it. And
he's linking the Ethan Klein video to his audience because, you know, to show support.
Yeah, there's the video. It's the Ethan.
Perhaps this is the reason why Ethan Klein doesn't talk about Asmongold and his apologia for certain regimes of the past. You know, Ethan, who really cares about anti-Semitism, of course. That's what constantly comes after me, someone he knows has a long track record alongside him at times, attacking anti-Semites and explaining to people what famous dog whistles are and things of that nature. But that'll be for a different day.
People are so ideologically captured. It's sad. I think a lot of people are. I saw this the other day. Actually, this. Here we go.
Hey, Dan Clancy. Time to wish Hasan another happy birthday song, you hack fuck. Anyone else will get permabanned on Twitch for this. This is beyond the pale. This is enticing your audience to kill a sitting senator. Don't people go to jail for this? This is not me enticing my audience to kill a sitting U.S. senator. That is ridiculous. Everybody knows that that is ridiculous. The people that are complaining about this know that that is ridiculous. But I'm glad that I was able to show you the context, the full context of what I was talking about. If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick, okay? You wouldn't make Rick Scott, former governor of Florida, Rick Scott, you wouldn't make him a prominent part of the Republican.
That is, and I've said before, the statute of limitations, but apparently this was yesterday. Yeah, this happened yesterday. Oh my, how's that not against the TOS? It is. And it is an open call to violence. And I would challenge anybody who thinks that it's not an open call to violence to say that exact thing about Donald Trump. And then tell me if Secret Service shows up at your house. It's very obviously a call to violence. And Twitch doesn't do anything? Well, I don't know if they've really seen it or anybody's reported it or anything like that.
I think Asmongold is covering this because he wants Twitch to see it. He's done this a couple times in the past couple of weeks, I understand. We are ideologically butting heads on Twitch. Asmongold and I disagree vehemently on a lot of issues, all the way from the history of Nazi Germany down to the fact that immigrants are not actually contributing to the American crime rates in the way that the Republican administration